laughing over here because I smacked my cheeks before we got started because I was dealing with a yelling cat, Jen, and
I
then
know. I could even hear her.
I
Poor
had to let her out of the room, and it was closed because we have had a pipe bust in our home.
baby.
Yay. And so the
Fun.
plumbers are here
Yeah.
tearing down drywall and stuff and life. It is
Life.
life. So I'm
Life
laughing because
happens.
my cheeks are red. It's guys, wake up. We're gonna do our live and it's gonna be
But
great.
it's true. Life happens. And I tell my clients this all the time. This is
Yeah.
why we build in extra time into schedules because things happen, your end, my end. It's just life. And a book project is a long project. And so when you're talking about something that's 6 months, a year, 18 months, however long it's taking you, things will happen during that time. And so you have to realize that we're not making widgets, as I'm fond of saying. It's
We're
different.
not, right? You can control the widgets. You
Yeah,
can't
they look the same
control.
every time, but a book, as
Mhm.
many books as I have written, they're different every time, and that's just part of the process. So
It
we
is.
are
It is.
embracing life and all this
Embracing life.
craziness. My backyard is a lake because apparently it just cannot stop raining and snowing here in Southern
I was gonna
California.
say, how much snow did you guys get?
Well, we only got a few inches, but the mountains got like 9 feet and the roads are closed. Like people are stuck. They can't go up, they can't go down. It looks beautiful. I can see it from here. It's gorgeous
9
when the sun
feet?
actually ever comes out. Yeah, 9 feet. A friend of mine showed her roof line. It was cracking inside the house from the weight of the snow. And they had to get up on the roof and get the snow off because it was too much snow, too much weight.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a wet, heavy snow. It's not like a light, fluffy snow. It's very wet. And so then she's like, I don't know. We have no room to put the snow anywhere. Like we're trying to dig out, but where do you put it? Like there's no place to put it. So yeah, it's a challenge, especially in the mountains where you've got houses built on like sides of hills and stuff. There's just really no place to put the snow. So there's no big like open field. When I lived in the Midwest, when they plow a lot of times in the grocery store parking lots, right? They'll plow like this giant mountain of snow, right? They push it all up there. At one point, we lived at the end of a cul-de-sac, and they actually pushed all the snow into our front yard, which was fine. The kids liked it. I mean, we had this giant snow mountain; they could sled down it and everything.
I mean, oh my word. It's just I was doing a podcast interview this weekend and someone from California was who was leading it. And she called in and was in like intermittent internet and was like, it's snowing. I don't have good internet. And it was like, you've got to be kidding me. And it's proof of life and things. And you just don't ever know. And you need to create margin for that. That is a really important part of all life and all of work. But also as we're talking and we're diving into, the importance of visibility efforts, we need to also create margin there, both in preparation for when you have them, both in your preparation for pitching for them, but also having grace when you are on them, because getting feedback of when visibility kind of comes to fruition, it doesn't always work in the space and the way that, like the podcast interview I was supposed to do last weekend, it's now rescheduled. So hopefully when she can dig out of the snow.
Right. And and the thing is, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so as you're thinking about, especially visibility is an ongoing, like it's not a one and done thing. It's going to be an ongoing thing that you do throughout the life of your book, your life as an author, your life as an entrepreneur. And that's going to be an ongoing thing. And so you have to realize that you can't just get it all in one fell swoop. I followed Amy Porterfield for a long time. She does online marketing. Made Easy, I think is what she calls it. So she has a lovely podcast. She has lovely courses on email building and online courses and stuff like that. Well, she launched a book called Your 2 Weeks Notice. And it's about leaving your corporate job. She used to work for Tony Robbins. And I think she's been on her own for 8 or 9 years, a long time. But leaving your corporate job, and how do you start building a side hustle? So she wrote this book called 2 Weeks Notice. And she was talking this week about the whole book launch thing. And she said, oh my gosh, I've launched lots and lots of courses and helped lots of people launch courses. A book is so much harder. She goes, It's a $27 book is harder to sell than a $2,000 course. And I thought,
I like her. I like what she has to say because it's true.
And she talked about, well, I just did this like I would do a course launch. And there were some things about that were really helpful. She did like a webinar and she did some bonuses and some other things that were super helpful. She already had gotten herself, knew the space as, that selling yourself sometimes feels awkward, but you have to mentally go, I'm helping somebody, I'm helping you. And so she was already there. So she had kind of overcome that hurdle, but she talked about having all these people that had been on her podcast over the years and then having to go to them. She had set herself a goal of being on 100 podcasts before her book launch. I know that's crazy, right? It's a lot.
Before?
Yes. In the months she started, her book launch was a 4-month thing, which is a really, really long runway. But she said for her, it was awkward to have to ask people now, can I be on your podcast? Like that was not something she normally did. And so here's someone who's very successful, who runs a big successful company, and to ask people, can you give me a platform for my book? Because I've you, and it is uncomfortable. And of course, everyone's so happy to do it, right? If you're a podcast host, you're looking for guests that are
good ones.
Yeah, that are good, that are going to be of a benefit to your audience. And so it is, again, it's a win-win. But I just thought those things were so interesting to pull out from somebody who spends her career. This is what she does. And there were still things about the book launch that were uncomfortable to her because launching a book is a unique thing.
Unique piece. Well, the visibility part of a book's journey is usually the shiny, sexy part that people want to jump to.
Yeah.
Because they think, to sell books, I have to get out there and tell people about it. And, we've talked about, and I know, like my approach, the method is you got to do your platform first, and then you need to collaborate with and engage your connections before you get to your visibility efforts. But she highlights the truth in the matter. Visibility, I've found, is like a double-edged sword. It's exciting and fun, and it's also terrifying. And in doing it too, if you're doing it just for doing its sake, it could fall flat. And so I like to I have a little phrase that I use when I'm talking about visibility, because I think it's at the heart of really understanding the right visibility efforts that you should do. And it's get seen, be heard, sell books. It's like a 3-step approach. If you just go and you're on any podcast or you do any speaking engagement, like you will perfect your elevator speech, you will get really good at that stuff, but you're probably not going to sell books. It's this partnership between getting seen, but layering over it, the most important part is actually being heard. And there's a difference there. And it's like people can see you, but if you aren't being seen in front of the right people, you will never be heard.
Yes, that's true.
And that's what sells books. When people, and so the whole point of what she was sharing, getting on other people's podcasts and such, is important, because that's when you go to other people's platforms to increase your visibility after you've got a strong platform yourself and after your connections kind of know what's going on. But finding those platforms are important because you want them to be places that people go for trusted information, and you are a solution and connected with that kind of trusted circle, or you will never be heard. You will be doing really great visibility work to people that don't care about your message.
That's right. It's got to be the right audience. And this is when people will say to me, well, my book is for everyone. It's like, well, if your book is for everyone, then it's for no one. Because it needs to be targeted where someone is going to pick that up and going, oh my gosh, are you reading my mail? Hi, Oreo. How are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. And I've tried to already push them away.
I don't even have any kitties with me today because it's not exactly very warm in this room.
Right. I know though too. Like every time I try to move him, he comes back, and it's just what happens when I have to put them up. And the plumber.
Mom, did you know there's weird people in our house and they're doing?
I've been hearing noises. I can't eat. I can't go to the bathroom.
I don't like it.
Anyways, well, he's a prime example. He's being seen, but I'm not listening.
Right. He's going to the wrong audience right now.
Oh my gosh. When I saw the door open, I thought, Jen, he's the coming. He's a coming.
Here they come.
But yeah, I mean, so I have been on podcasts. We'll use that as a good example of kind of so we will talk in the future weeks about specific types of visibility. Today we can use podcasts as an opportunity just, to kind of level set when we're talking about it. But a podcast to me is like a micro approach with a macro reach. It's a way to really go to the niche so that you can reach the most people. But you can find that you might have thought you were in the right place and it's not the right place, so you want to leverage any visibility opportunities to do a couple of things. You want it not just to go, oh, yay, look at me, buy a book, because sometimes it still won't happen quickly because these people don't know you. This is the first time they're seeing you on the stage or hearing you on the podcast or watching you in a webinar, right? Like the trust cycle, the trust conversion cycle is still wide, right? But if you go where your target reader and target client is, and it's in a place where there's a trusted source in between, that can be very helpful. But the other part of what I love about visibility, Jen, is, and it's some of the stuff I do on the regular. It's like, yes, I want to get in and reach new people because I think that I could help them. But it also gives you something to come back and tell your current connections about as well.
Yes. Yes, that's very true. And I think this is where it's very helpful in nonfiction. And why I always say, if you are speaking at any level, I don't care if it's your local chamber of commerce, your local networking group, you need a book, because people, you cannot say all of your thought leadership in your little amount of time. Even if you have a 30-minute speech, you just will not have that space. But those people already are engaged. They are interested in what you have to hear, and they want more of that. And so most speakers have people that are coming to hear them speak, or people that happen to be, but you've got that common interest, that current group of interest that can be really helpful. And even for people who do some sort of consulting, or even therapists, or go back to my financial advisor example, you find yourself saying the same thing to your clients over and over and over again. A lot of times having a book and giving it to them, hey, here's how we can really go deeper. There's exercises in there. There's things you can do. We can come back and talk about it next time or whatever. Again, you're leveraging what you already have to take that. And then people are going to go, oh my gosh, did you know? I was so excited. I was reading this book. You should see this person, or you should read this book. It's so much easier to hand a book to somebody else, to recommend them, than to say, come see this person speak, or come make an appointment with my whatever, right? It's not that. Again, it's the local that'll start going out. But if your message is so broad, nobody feels passionate about it, nobody's going to recommend it.
Right. Well, and that's it. What you just said is like a nugget I want to hold on. It's the recommendation piece. So visibility is as much being in front of the right people who might want to buy your book, but really go beyond that and invest in you in other ways. But it's also a great way for you to become referable and someone that people can recommend. And a book can be that solution. I've had people who've bought my latest book and gifted it to people who are writing books, and then I get calls from those people, right? And so it becomes this unique kind of visibility piece. So a book can be a beautiful part of your visibility strategies to grow your business as well. It really all goes back, Jen, as to everything good in marketing is, who are you trying to reach and how are you going to serve them? How can you help them most? What are the problems? Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. This is crazy. Now I have a cat trying to get my husband just popped up and threw 2 cats in my room and closed the door.
Oh, great. Just what you need. More cats.
Right. But he didn't close the door. So one of them is Luna's trying to get out. Anyways, the joys, I have yet to meet a reader who doesn't like cats.
Right. Yes, that's true. And I'll just piggyback off that to our fiction friends who might be going,
Zan has a good question here.
Yeah. What does this have to do with me? And and I didn't even see my comment thing did not light up. So it must be
you didn't even see it.
Must be because I'm not hosting. No, now I can see it. Okay. So for fiction authors, this is where I'd say there's 2 spaces, the virtual and your local space. So your local space, and this would be more challenging for Zan because she's in Spain. But your local library, your local reader group. There's meetups of people who are readers, right? And so what can you offer them? Well, you know something about the writing journey. Sometimes people want to know like how the sausage is made. How did you write a book? What is the behind the scenes? Or like if you're a local author, and like in my case, my books are set locally, I can talk about some of the history of the area.
Absolutely.
Libraries and community groups are always looking for people to do programs for them.
Yeah.
How to write a memoir or write down your memories or a legacy or something like that, right? What can you think about what you enjoy and what you can offer to your community? Not so much buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, but again, what you can offer to your local community. And then virtually, one thing that I think is super helpful is connecting with other authors who have your same readership. This is not a competition. You personally cannot provide enough books for your readers. You can't. I don't care if you write a book a week. There are whale readers that'll read a book a day. So you cannot personally provide enough books for them.
That's crazy, by the way.
It is. It is a little insane. But good. But you can connect with those other authors. My best results come from connecting with other authors where we share the same reader group and we do some sort of promo together. Or like right now, I'm in a round robin where every month, there's 12 of us. Every month we take turns promoting each other's work. So hey, the book, and those people sign up for our newsletter because like, oh, well, I love so-and-so's work. I'm going to love your work too. And so using that, especially when you're a new, newsletter swaps. So promote me in your newsletter. I will promote you in my newsletter. And so I think that can be really helpful when you stop looking at it as competition and start looking at it as collaborative. How can we help each other? Book Funnel is really good for this. They actually have things that are listed there. Story Origin also does. Those are websites. But also just getting to know local readers, or it doesn't even have to be local, but other writers. There's Facebook groups. 20 Books to 50K is a huge one. They have conferences. Local conferences, if you can do some local or more regional conferences where you can actually meet people in person, those can be super helpful too. So think about how you can connect with people who share your same audience. And again, this is for nonfiction. You can find complementary service providers who you guys might serve the same client at a different part of their journey.
Absolutely.
And that can be a really great way to connect and help people. You can serve the same people, and people oftentimes are looking for a fuller solution, and that can be very, very helpful. Again, you're providing a service.
Yes.
Your book is part of that.
Well, and just to piggyback on something you said in regards to the fiction space, what I wanted to also add to it is there are kind of two ways you can look at it. And you went to it. I just want to like hit more of a home run and make sure that like this point is like crystal clear. If you go out and tell everybody to buy my book, if you get a podcast interview and you're like, okay, and the whole time you talk about buy your book, I don't think you'll sell books, people. That is not what sells books. Right. People, you're asking for, when you're asking for somebody to buy a book, you're asking for them to make a financial investment, usually $20, give or take, and a time investment, which is usually a 6 to 8 hour investment, of their own time, which to me is actually a higher investment than the $20. All right. So keeping that in mind, you will not sell a book if you try to sell a book. Like you have to realize there's something beyond that. And when you're leveraging your visibility opportunities, I want you to take a step back and consider, you mentioned the craft of writing. That is something that people find so intriguing. And I definitely think in the fiction space is intriguing. So you can definitely talk about that. People will love that. People are enamored by how books come to life. I just had a cousin come over last night because he needed something for my husband. And I was showing him some of what I was doing with my newest book. And I mean, his eyeballs were super big. He was so excited about seeing how all of that worked and like thought it was so amazing. So people will invest in that because they don't buy books. They're buying and investing in people. The other side is, what is the thread of your storyline? Even if it's a fiction storyline, there is a thread, there is a theme, there is a human element to it, and people will invest in that. So even though I've not written fiction, the fiction storyline that I'm still marinating for one day is something around the foster cats. Although after today, and I'm gonna, I know a couple of them. I might change my mind, but it's this, this storyline of the backstories of the cats that have come through our home, and what would they be like if they were people, and I could talk about their past and their present stories. So if that comes to fruition in a fiction book one day or series one day, the thread there could be multi-leveled. It could be the animal fostering communities.
Mm-hmm.
I could do a partnership. You don't have to, but I could do a partnership where I give a percentage back to the local humane societies. Don't have to, but could. But it could also be the thread of the stories of like the lifeline, right? Like one of them I'm, considering, like both of his parents passed in war, right? Like, so that could open lines to something else. Another one, they each are unique. And so those storylines are thematic elements that people connect with. They see themselves in it. Talk about that. Talk about the theme of perseverance and hope. Talk about that. And that's really what you're doing in the book. You're gifting people the theme, a respite from the chaos of life, but you're doing it in a way where they can see themselves in it possibly. So people will invest in that.
Yeah, it's true. My latest book, I have a character who she has a son with autism, and I drew heavily on my experience with my son with autism at that age. And people have really, really responded to that storyline because it feels real, because they see the struggle, because they get what, they might not have known what that was like, but now you live vicariously through stories so you can understand somebody else's experience. And that is really, that's what we love about each other as people, is we love each other's stories, and fiction brings that to life. And so I have been quite pleased with how well that has resonated with the readers. They've really, really responded to that, and they want more of that. So they want more of the real life, real people struggles and challenges and those kinds of things. And that's what people are going to respond to. And that's why even when you're writing nonfiction, you need to have stories in your book of real people, because that's how people respond to that. They connect with
There was another thing that my cousin said last night. It's always just fun to hear from people who don't work or live in our space, Jen, and what they think about with books. And he's doing a exercise challenge. It's called like 75 hard or 70 hard or something like that, where you heard of that. It's like X number of 70 or 75 days where you do 2 45-minute workouts. Holy crap, I can't even find time. One, you drink like a ton of water, which I've been trying to do. You pick a diet or kind of a meal plan and stick to it. There's a couple other things you do, but one of the things that you do is you read X number of pages or hours a day in a nonfiction book.
Nice.
I know. So that got us talking at dinner about things. And I said, how are you going? He's like, that's the hardest part for me. I'm like, that's the only part I'd be able to do well. And I said, why? And he's like, well, he said, I've uncovered that I hear books. I can hear books. I'm not really good at this, sitting down and reading. And I said, okay. So he's learning that about him. And this is good for us to know as people, as authors. And I said, okay. But then he said, and I thought this was like a big poof moment, and it reinforces what you just said. He goes, you have to read nonfiction in this 75 hard thing, like, because it's about personal and professional development. But he said, I don't like nonfiction. I'm like, why? And he goes, there's no story. And I go,
wrong nonfiction.
That's what I said. You haven't read my newest book. It's full of stories.
Right.
But there are beautiful nonfiction stories or books that have that story thread. And really, story is our connecting piece. It's what I think that's the pivot on just getting seen and starting to be being heard.
Yes.
Because people can see themselves in the storyline and in the book, and then they will then go out and help spread the word about it.
Yes.
So
that's
your
exactly
visibility becomes twofold.
And you always say, people don't buy from companies and they don't buy products, they buy from people. And I think that's the same thing with your book. They want to connect with you. They want to connect with your story. I mean, how many times, I have a very large to be read pile of books of people that I heard them on a podcast. And I was like, wow, that sounds really interesting. I need to get that book. Right.
Yeah. So, Right. And that's the first step, right? Like they've made that investment and now you want them to take action from it. And it's really about ensuring that, I guess this goes back to making sure that the book that you wrote is a marketable one.
Yes.
And then layer in that the people you're trying to reach are the right people who don't just see your message as something that would be a nice to have. They see it as a must, a game changing in their business and in their life and in their career and in their every day, and they can't not have it. Those are really big deals. And then knowing that's when the tactics pop in. That's when the newsletters or the swapping of info or the podcast, that all of that comes later. It's very shiny to go to those things, but you need to start with understanding where do you need to be so someone doesn't just see you, but hears you, and then will take action.
And we will always say, start with your strategy first, which is who is your audience and where are they? Like you have got to spend some time on that. That's not a quick fix always. And it will be in maybe some unexpected places. So it will take some time thinking through who you know, their connections, all of that. Once you have figured that out, then you can start looking at the tactics. How do I get a speaking gig? How do I get on a podcast?
Absolutely.
Who should I swap with? Who should I try to get an interview with? Whatever, right? There's a whole list of those kinds of things. Right. But first, figure out who your audience is. If you have not done that before you wrote your book, and if your editor did not help you figure that out while you were writing your book, you are going to have a much more challenging time when it comes to marketing your book because you did not target the right audience. So that's what we always are preaching from the very beginning.
Well, and that's where if you need help, that's the first step of what we do over here. So when in our marketing plan development is target audience analysis. So absolutely consider that. The other thing I wanted to throw out is, I host the Empowered Author podcast, and the season I'm doing right now, it's two weeks in, 2 episodes in on the 6-episode season is on inbound marketing. And it's really built around the They Ask You Answer approach. And so I would highly encourage, if you aren't quite sure who your target audience is, I think it's the latest episode we were talking on, or that the latest episode is around They Ask and identifying the questions that your target audience is asking and how to figure that out. And then there's a section in there where it's like, if you don't know who they are, that's okay. There's some tips in there on how you can uncover them. And maybe that would open doors and make your visibility a little bit easier, because when you are really someone who is giving value, visibility should not be as hard as we make it, because people will start to go, oh my gosh, I need her like that, or I need him. I need their message. It's going to help my group. And so it's that value focus and then connecting those dots.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we'll be talking about visibility over this is a 5-week month. So the whole month of March, y'all. Welcome to March, by the way. Jen, I didn't even get to say hi. Welcome
Happy
to
March. Yes. January seems like a long time ago. It's weird.
I know.
Usually I think the months just fly by, but I don't know why February felt very long, and it was a short month.
And it's the shortest month out there. I know.
What's up with time? Why is it not normal?
I don't know. I don't understand it. Well, so I wanted to share, there's a book that I recently had the opportunity to do a marketing plan for. And, you know how I feel about things happening randomly, but never randomly. Like I had someone call it a God sequence. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And this book came at a time when my son identified some health concerns he has that could be connected to a chronic illness that my husband has. So that's been kind of happening over the last month. But the book is called Freedom from IBS. And I always, when I get a new book to take a peek at, I'm always like, I'm not usually the target audience. And yet many times I get to the end and I'm like, I didn't know I needed to know that. And that was game changing. Lisa Thorne is wonderful. And she has in her book shared some beautiful insights on how she's been able to completely reset in a holistic way her gut health and trusted her gut after listening to it, and really been able to regain control of the life that she wants to live. And so much about the book was beautiful and relevant, crazy relevant to the life that we have going on. But the quote that I wanted to pull out today, I think is relevant to everybody, and it's around stress. That ugly word, stress. And here's what she says in the book. She says, most of the modern world doesn't have real predators at their heels, but most of us live in our bodies as if we do. Yeah. Granted, there are real threats, but the body's innate response to danger is now firing nearly all our waking moments in situations that are not really truly dangerous, creating a stress cycle that, if unchecked, is very, very, very hard on our bodies over time.
So true. It's so true. And the more I learn about that, I read a whole book called Burnout. It was very much about the same idea. Our bodies are constantly acting like they're being threatened, but then there's no physical release. If a tiger jumps out you and you run away, your body's muscles activate, and then you're like, oh, now I'm safe. And like, okay, it's gone away. But our stress response, our stresses never really leave. Like, how do you ever get away from the stack of bills, or your overworked schedule, or people calling and texting or whatever, right? Like, you never are safe from that. So your body never gets to really relax from that. And it's this cycle that we're really not aware of, and we're not handling properly. And boy, you can see it in our lives and how we respond to things. And so I'm very curious.
Scary. Yeah. Well, and in her book, she talks about that. She talks about how stress, we all carry stress differently and in different places. And I know when my husband's chronic condition came to its ugly head, it was during one of the most stressful times of our own lives. And it invited an unwelcomely, I'm making that word up, it was not a welcomed journey that we invited. It invited a autoimmune condition that he lives with now forever and always. And it was because of stress. I think of my health condition, and I am highly, highly aware that it was likely triggered because of stress. And so knowing that can almost make things more stressful. So you have to take a pause and re-identify what are the things that matter most to you in life? How do you keep certain things in check? Just like what we opened today, Jen, talking about giving yourself margin and grace. How do you do that in a way that is healthy for everybody? And continuously learning and shifting and growing from it. I think that outside of the fact that it leaves us frazzled and with, unhealthy cuticles and, and short nails, right? Like it hurts us even more deeply than we know.
Yes, that's very true.
It's important for us to not forget that. So exercising, meditation, getting good rest, eating a well-balanced diet, setting boundaries, all of those things are game-changing, not just for your mental health, but your physical one too.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. And
I'm reading throughout this weekend or this month, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jen, but I'll tell you this and I want to hear what you said, but throughout the rest of the month, I'm reading a book called The Stressless Brain. That's another client I've got. And so I'll be able to share, I know, even more tips and insights on stress. See, maybe the universe is telling me something, Jen.
Well, as I like to say, our body is like the factory, for most of us, like you and I, were knowledge workers. And so our bodies, our brains, this is the factory. These are the assets. These are the resources. If they go down, you're in trouble. So you have to have regular maintenance, right? If you have a car, you have to get the oil changed. You have to take care of the tires. You've got to do the things that you've got to do. And your body is no different. You can't just run without having that time. And if you do, you will crash and burn and it will be a problem. So
absolutely,
take the time to get everything, to do the maintenance that you need to do to keep things running properly. And I have found that to be kind of a really nice way for me to think about, well, I'm sorry, but the factory needs to be closed for cleaning today. So.
That's a beautiful way to talk about it. And it's totally true. You wouldn't drive your car if it goes beyond getting an oil change very long without expecting it to fall apart.
Right.
And if we don't, we don't do that to ourselves. We focus more on the things and less on us. And not that we want to be people that are consumed by us, but it
Right.
is important for us to be aware of things, because you'll never be able to fulfill your purpose, to write more books, to inspire, to even sell books, to change lives if you can't show up.
True. Very true. If you're not going to be there, you can't do it.
You can't. No. Well, there's power in all that, Jen, isn't there?
Yes.
Close us out.
Is authors, you have power, your words have power, and your message has power. So we invite you each week to bring that here with us to the page and beyond the page as we discuss all things books and marketing. And we will see you guys next week.
Yes. Have a good week, guys. See y'all later.